DEACAM considers itself partners with the brewing industry here in Australia. We do a lot of different projects. We provide automation control for fermentation and brew kits. We also work on the packaging lines, canning from bottling to labelling to date coding. And what we've got here at Mornington is a classic example of DEACAM being able to think outside of the square to solve a real problem that Mornington was experiencing.
In November of 2017, we ran into a few problems with power. We just bought a centrifuge, and being hotter weather, we also had the glycol system, which cools all the tanks. They were kind of a peak load. So we started blowing fuses, and we didn't really understand why. And so we got Warren from DEACAM in, and he did basically an assessment of our electricity needs.
We often talk in brewing about planning for growth, and Mornington is a perfect example of that. So as we were coming into the warmer parts of the year around November and their production had increased, they started to blow fuses for power supply. So what happened is we just basically broke through all of their supply capacity, and it happened very quickly. So as soon as the temperature came on for the summer season and the beer production was up, well, all of a sudden we ran out of power.
The finding was that we were basically at peak load, which means that we've got a capacity of 100 amps into the site, which realistically means they give us about 80. And at times we were hitting 123. So unfortunately we were above what we were being supplied by the grid. The wiring going down from our mains all the way down to our subboards were probably not as set up the way they needed to be. And so we have power coming in, not enough, but we also were feeding it incorrectly down the wire as well. Our glycol system, which controls all the tanks, they have 2 compressors and they have 2 pumps. They only need 1 through winter, but when it needs more, the second pump comes on, the second compressor comes on. So rather than being at like at 46, 50 amps, it got to about 83 amps. Well, that's our load to our site.
Causing a circuit breaker to trip in a brewery is not as simple as just going and resetting that circuit breaker. There can be a lot of machines running at that time, and power supply to them can be critical. And for here at Mornington Peninsula Brewery, one of the examples was if the centrifuge was running and power was lost, the vacuum within that centrifuge and therefore the process was actually null and void and had to be repeated. So for us to be able to supply Mornington Peninsula Brewery with hard base load power with a lot of reliability was critical to their production. Mornington were exceeding their supply capacity of about 80 amps a phase. And traditionally, in order to increase that, you would need to go and apply for a mains upgrade for the facility, and that can take anywhere between 6 to 18 months to actually get done. So most breweries would rely on a generator there, and a generator is like either a generator or mains solution. The generators very rarely run in parallel with mains, and particularly here for the brewery, that meant that they would be running generator for 24 hours a day, really until March or April when the seasons started to get cooler. But we had an opportunity there where we had a battery, a very large battery set, that we knew would be able to actually blend mains with battery power. And through a fair bit of engineering, we loaded the system here at site and we tuned it and tuned it and tuned it. And now what happens is anything above that 80 amp per phase load for the brewery, we supply out of batteries. And then as soon as the load decreases, we then take that extra out of the capacity of the supply and we charge the batteries up. The batteries really are providing peak load protection for the brewery. We know that there are times this brewery runs as low as 40 amps a phase, and that's often. It's just those peaks that really bring a lot of businesses unstuck, and that's where batteries are fantastic. So this system here forces power in when we need it, and then when we have surplus power within the facility, we then charge the batteries up. There's a backup generator here, so if we have the batteries getting depleted and they need to be charged, we can bring the generator in to do that. But a perfect example of how efficient this system is for the brewery, that generator has never been topped up with diesel. I can tell you that the tank they're supplying, the generator, is still more than half full, and the system's been in for over 8 months now.
It's almost seamless, you know. You might see a little flicker of light, but then it just smooth sailing again. So what it ensured me was a consistent supply of power, so therefore I could make beer, I could package beer, I could keep beer chilled.
This was critical for the brewery. They were in peak demand season, which is coming into summer. They ran out of power, and unless we were able to enact a solution quickly, they were going to lose possibly sales, and they may not recover for those for some months. So we were running shifts down here. We worked right through Saturdays and Sundays, and we transformed this brewery over a matter of, say, 7 to 10 days. We essentially rewired it, and then we connected the battery system and tuned that in and got them running. And it's also important to note that during our installation period, they did not cease production. So we were able to work around them and tailor our jobs to suit what they were doing at the time. So they never stopped production, and within 7 days, they were up and running, and really the system after 10 days was flawless. Batteries have come a long way, and the costs per kilowatt hour are reducing. So we've got a great opportunity now for situations just like this, where we can lean on the technology of batteries and also the reliability of them. There's zero maintenance in these batteries. No one is needed to tune it or to see what's going on after it was initially commissioned. So their ability to provide peak protection for a facility like this is unsurpassed anywhere else. And Australia is a really unique provider of this kind of technology. The systems that we're relying on, which are Selectronic, the inverting systems that we're using, they're made in Churnside Park. They've been building those systems for over 50 years, and they're known as one of the best providers of inverter technology for off-grid applications anywhere in the world. And we've got that within 10 Ks of the DEACAM head office.
They simply understand what our business is. They feel as though that they are a true partnership in terms of that win-win. They're very, very reliable, but if things just go the wrong way, we just call them. So whether it be mill or electrical or whatever it is, they've always been first on call.
DEACAM loves being a part of the Australian craft brewing industry.